And good evening, guys. Welcome back to the channel. Back with the Wandering Mariner. So tonight we are talking about the differences, or at least what is better to join when becoming a merchant mariner. Is it SIU or Military Sea Lift Command? And SIU is Seafarers International Union. So I've had the opportunity to work for both. And if you're coming to this video wondering, all right, so just tell me, which is better? I cannot give you a genuine quick answer about which is better because I don't understand like your situation and where you're coming from, because I think it differs a little bit. So I'm going to go through my story and then kind of give you my shakedown of which one I think is better for different scenarios and situations, and you guys can make up your own mind which one's better for you. Okay? So the journey kind of started out for myself is I was in the Navy for 26 years. And I'm just going to give you my quick, short, long story here. So while I was in the Navy, ever since I was a junior sailor on my first ship, I would stand watch and look out at all these foreign lands that I was passing by and look at the charts and always think to myself, I wonder what it's like right there, out there at that little hut on that beautiful beach. What's life like for those people right there? I always had this fascination of other countries and other cultures and exploring and kind of checking things out. And I would stand watch with this other guy that had been around a while, Mike, and me and him would stand watch late in the evening, and he would tell me that one day he was going to join the Merchant Marine. And I was like, what is the Merchant Marine? And he kind of explained it briefly to me, but I was like, yeah, maybe I'll join the Merchant Marine one day. So fast forward 20 something years later, I'm retiring from the Navy. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do after my military service? And when you leave any career for a long time, you're always looking to parlay whatever experiences and knowledges you have in that career field for your next career field. So I'd found out, hey, you can become an able-bodied seaman or a merchant seaman. And I was like, I'm going to do it. So before I retired, I did some research on how to get credited my sea time for my Merchant Marine credentials, so that when I joined the Merchant Marine, I wouldn't start out as an entry-level ordinary seaman, but I would come in as an able-bodied seaman and have a little bit more seniority. Because I thought, all this time in the Navy, I have lots of knowledge and experience already gained. I'm going to parlay that to work in my benefit. So I had applied for my Merchant Marine credentials before, like, I want to say 3 months before I got out of the Navy. Kind of forgot about it. Went and got a state job working for the state of Wisconsin. Good job. First day I was out of the Navy, I was already working for the state. Benefits, features, all the good stuff. Well, after about 3 months, I realized that being a state employee was not for me. And the one day that I was thinking about leaving, my Merchant Marine credentials came in the mail. And I looked at it and I told myself, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the Merchant Marine. So I gave my resignation to the state and went home and broke the news to my wife that I was going to go back to sea. And she was like, well, I'm not moving. She had enough of the idea of moving or dragging around. We were settled. I was retired from the Navy. She didn't want to go anywhere. So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go out on the ship and then I'll come back and forth. She's like, all right, go play sailor if that's what you want to do. So did some research. I'm like, all right, Seafarer International Union has a union hall in Joliet, Illinois, about 2 hours away from my house. I grabbed my documents and I said, going down there. And I did a little internet research and I found out that there was dues to be paid to join the union and whatnot. So I showed up at the union hall. I'm going to say, I don't remember what day of the week it was, but I show up at the union hall and I go in and I say, I want to join the union. And they're like, okay, let me see your credentials. And I'm like, here's my book. And I hand it to him all proudly and he looks through it and he goes, Yeah, this says ordinary seaman, but this is for inland. This isn't international deep water credentials. You could only work on rivers and lakes. And I was like, oh. And that was the first time I realized that there was a difference between entry-level credentials and deep sea credentials. And he was like, you need to go do your BST, your VPSD, and like all these other courses that I need to go do. So I was like, all right. So I went home, Googled schoolhouses. And at that time, there was a schoolhouse in San Diego. I'd lived in San Diego for many years. So I was like, you know what? I told the wife, I got to go to San Diego. She's like, what? I got to go for training. I signed up for classes for the following week, bought a plane ticket, flew to San Diego, paid for my own hotel, paid for the classes out of my own pocket, got all the credentials I needed to get my AB Unlimited. Took all the classes and even a couple extra for Military Sea Lift Command because I thought, well, if I do these, maybe that'll help me go that avenue if I ever decide that way. Because I didn't know if I wanted to do SIU or MSC or what. Honestly, I just wanted to start sailing and see what it was about. So I get my credentials. I go back down to the Union Hall on a Tuesday. And they're like, well, we don't take payment here. You got to go get a money order from the post office back then. So I go get this money order. I come back. I pay everything. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. They're like, well, now you have to wait for your seaman book and your credentials to come in for the union. He goes, it'll take a couple of weeks. So I'm like, all right. So I go home. My credentials come in. I got everything I need. I am all ready to go. I had sent in the meantime, he's like, you need to send this into the Coast Guard. So I got all my credentials done, everything. Maybe it took like another month. But I got everything done. Go to the Union Hall. And I'm like, all right, let's get her started. And he's like, okay, everything's in order. Have a seat, and if we have something for you, we'll let you know. Now, Joliet, Illinois Union Hall is super small. And I didn't even do the research here, but I know in this booklet, they put, so the union sends out their monthly seafarer log. But in this, they show you how many mariners from each Union Hall there are, how many are ashore, how many are on leave, or out on ship and whatnot. Let's see if I can find it here. I think it's near the back. But in here, it lists every Union Hall. But for the Joliet, for the deck department, there is 3 A books, 1 B book, and 1 C book registered on the beach. Total, all in all, there's 9. So there's 9 deck seamen working on the Joliet Hall right now. That's not a lot of deck seamen. So, that are there at least. So, at that time, I'm like, okay, well, I don't understand anything about what an A book, B book, C book is, anything. I'm just sitting there. And that was like the beginning of the week. Wednesday comes along. I show up the Union Hall. Got my bag with me. I got everything just in case they got orders for me. Wednesday goes by. Nothing. Thursday goes by. Nothing. Friday, around 3 o'clock, the one young lady that worked in the Union Hall calls me up. She goes, John, come on up. And I'm thinking, this is it. I'm going to get a boat. And I walk up. She goes, it's 3 o'clock. Nothing's come in. Nothing's going to come in on a Friday this late. So you might as well just go home for the weekend and come back in on Monday. And I was like, So I was heartbroken. I go back home. Monday morning, I'm like, pepping my step. John, things are going to happen. I'm talking to my brother as I'm driving the 2 hours there, 2 hours back home every day. And I'm thinking I'm going to get a hotel room or something and start staying down there. But as I'm walking up to the Union Hall, right before they even open, the port captain's standing outside. He's smoking a cigarette. He looks at me, he goes, so you ready to go to work? He throws his smokes down. I'm like, yeah. He goes, come on in. I got a boat for you. And I walk in, and he's like, all right, let's get your paperwork together. Boom, boom, boom. And he's like, you got to be in Milwaukee in 4 hours to catch the boat. It's a 2-hour drive there. So I'm like, holy smokes. So I have to get my brother to help me get there and everything else and get my car home. Boom, I get onto the boat, and I'm off and working. And I got a tug and interlocking barge out of Milwaukee. The boat, I think it was called the Prentice Brown. And I enjoyed that boat. I enjoyed the crew, but that's another story. But the reason why I want to talk about this is so you guys can understand a little bit more about this C book, B book, and A book. Because this was something that I did not comprehend or at least know really well. So let me explain this to you. So when you start out, all entry-level people are C books until you complete the C time that you need. So you need to sail as a C book for 90 days a calendar year for 2 consecutive years. So when I started, I thought it was only like 90 days. So I got on that first boat, and I was like, I want to upgrade to B book. I got to get 90 days of sea time. I didn't see the small print that said 2 consecutive years. So the boat that I got assigned to was a hard-working boat. Like, I'm not going to say it was blood money, but it was hard work. And 30 days into it, my time was up. It was just a substitute time on the boat. And that's really the only reason why I got the boat, was because there was a mariner that had a family emergency that had to leave the boat. So that spot opened up for 30 days. Well, 30 days went by, and they were like, I guess you're ready to go now, huh? And I was like, no. I knew I needed 90 days of sea time. So I was like, no, I'm gonna stay. The money's good. I'm here to work. And they were like, oh, okay. Well, that guy that was on that boat was kind of a homesteader. He was planning on coming back, but he couldn't get back on the boat until I left, or until another mariner left the boat. So I ended up staying for 90 days. But the permanent mariners that were typically there, I'm not going to say they were not hospitable, but they weren't really rolling out the red carpet for me and saying, welcome aboard, new guy. They definitely said, your time's up. Our normal guy needs to come back now. And I think they didn't know how to phrase it, but they wanted me to get the frick off the boat so their boy could come back. Understandable now after having a little bit more experience. But so after I completed the 90 days aboard the ship, I'm like, all right, I got my sea time I need. I'm going to go back to the Union Hall. And I went back, and after you get paid off the ship and you leave, you go to the Union Hall to get your vacation pay and do your checkout process. So I show up, and they're like, all right, here's the check for your vacation pay. Here's this, this, and this. And then I was like, so my B book now? He goes, no, you have to do 90 days, 2 consecutive years in a row. And I was just like, oh, man. So I was a bit heartbroken that I wasn't a B book, because then, you kind of realize that when you go into this B book, A book aspect or scenario of things, that once you get to the B book, you have to be a B book for 8 consecutive years of 90 days a year. So you have to go for 8 years to become an A book. And holding an A book gives you the highest priority to get assigned to ships, and you kind of get a better pick and choice of what's out there. And this is kind of the part where I say, all right, which is better for joining and starting working with MSC or SIU? And this is just my perspective. Everybody's story is a little bit different, but I wanted to kind of point out that what my scenario was. So when you join SIU, typically, somebody comes in and they go through the SIU apprenticeship program. So they go through all the training at Piney Point. They do all the sea time. And they also get assigned their first couple ships. to get that 90 days of each year, so that pretty much by the time they complete the apprenticeship program, they are a B book. So they're a B book, and when you're an entry level coming in off the street, you went and got your credentials on your own. You paid for your own school, your own training, your own upgrades and whatnot. They still see you as an entry level person, even though you hold the credentials of an able-bodied seaman. You're really junior compared to a lot of people that go through the apprenticeship program. So for myself, I feel like if I was starting out in the merchant marine field today and I had a choice between SIU or MSC, I would kind of look at what my experience level was. If I had some credentials and training, and like if you are qualified at certain positions in your book, but you haven't had the experience and time of sailing in those positions, I think that getting hired by MSC directly would be a better idea. If you're coming in with nothing, no training, no experience, no nothing, then I think SIU might be a better fit, because they're giving you all that training and whatnot, and you get bumped up in the B book or in your credentials, and you're just going to go faster. I think the opportunities are a bit faster when you go with the union. Now, both the union and MSC both have different pluses and minuses. You know, in the union, you are paying dues. You are paying, a lot of things. But on the flip side, you don't have to work when they say time to come back. Like if you are a civilian mariner or a CivMar working with Military Sea Lift Command. So I think they both have pluses and minuses. But, and I'm going to do a more in-depth video again. I think that we'll just call this segment 1. But I do want to do more information comparing these two and kind of laying it out. But I think if you have Navy or military experience and you want to parlay that experience to go fast, then I think Military Sea Lift Command is a better route. If you're entry level just coming in, I think SIU is a better route. So that's just my perspective. I'd like to know your guys' comments, thoughts, questions below, and we'll get around to them in segment 2 then. Hopefully you get some value out of this, guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll hit you on the next one. Have a good night, guys. Peace.